Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Munish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant.
What's up?
We had a very exciting weekend in the NBA, didn't we? We had such close games. I mean, I saw the stat and I was completely mind blown. There are only 9 instances where a team
Yeah.
trailed by 5+ points in the last 25 seasons, in the last 10 seconds of a game, and they came back and won it.
Yeah.
Two of those games out of those nine happened over the weekend. Incredible scenes. Dame Lillard hitting that great winner. Russell Westbrook hitting that great winner.
Yeah.
Two players whom we know who have quite a bit of beef with each other. So both of them coming out and hitting those game winners. We've seen Dame Lillard do this a couple of times. Russell Westbrook doing it was quite a bit of surprise, and against the Nets that too. So that gave it a nice ring to it as well.
Yeah, nice drama there.
No? Exactly. The Lakers played a pretty close game as well. That was a comedy of errors, wasn't it? LeBron James with a turnover, then AD with a turnover, and then Kemba Walker with a step back, which he almost always trains it,
Yeah.
but then somehow it didn't go in. And then they didn't really win there. The Boston Celtics marginally missing out on that
Right.
game.
Mhm.
That was a fun game, wasn't it? Two-digit game. I mean, very rare these days. Both the teams not reaching 100. Do you watch the game? I mean,
Yeah.
it was a fun game.
Yeah.
The Lakers though are having quite a bit of a kind of a dip in form, wouldn't you call it? They lost two games consecutively. They lost to the 76ers, a close game.
Mhm.
Then they had that fourth quarter. I don't know what happened in the fourth quarter against the Detroit Pistons. It just blew out. And then this game against the Celtics where they should have won. They were trailing. They came back. But then they kind of let it go to the last shot. The
Yeah.
Lakers having a bit of dip in form, do you think? Something worrying?
Uh no. If this runs into multiple games and defeats, it'll be worrying. I think a few things are happening with the Lakers, right? One, I think everyone's expectations have kind of been reset after the championship, and
Yeah.
this happens every time you're the defending champs, right? People suddenly seem to expect flawless performances. If you've been with the Lakers last season, they had plenty of stretches like this um, where the form kind of looked troublesome or the rotations weren't quite working. Players were coming in and out of form. So I don't think it's that bad. I think one of the things that we praised Frank Vogel for a lot last season,
Mm-hmm.
apart from defensive discipline and all the things that we knew he was good at, was the sheer fearlessness with which he made adjustments. And we spoke about this throughout the playoffs, right? The number of adjustments that he makes on the fly to adapt to new situations. Against Portland, it went one way because Portland had a lot of bigs and there was Nurkic and there was Whiteside and all of that. And then against the Houston Rockets, who very famously now or infamously played a lot of small ball. And so the Lakers went small. And Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee sat out pretty much all of the season. Markieff Morris came in, got a whole lot more minutes. AD was the 5, and boom, series win. And they flipped that again against the Nuggets because there was Jokic and there was Plumlee and all those guys. So Vogel's been great at making adjustments, always quick to adapt. I think what we saw this season, and we kind of touched upon this at the start of the season, was the Lakers have so much depth now that it's going to take a while for them to find out the ideal rotations, who their best options are as starting five and the primary off the bench role players, and then who are their backups, and how do you space the minutes between them, and how do you ensure that you have at least two, if not more, set
Mm-hmm.
fives. So you have your primary five, and then you have your rotation five. Like the Lakers went with the rotation five of Horton Tucker, Kuzma, Caruso, Montrezl Harrell, and LeBron James. That's a pretty solid five because it gives you pace, it gives you hustle, it gives you defensive ability, and multiple shooters, slashers, and um, people who can space the floor for LeBron. Right, balls in his hands, you can find multiple options to pass to. So in all of this, I think what happened was there was experimentation. There was experimentation with rotation. There was experimentation with minutes. And so you
Mm-hmm.
saw 11, 12 players even sometimes get a look in, almost to the point where it felt compulsive with the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when it's almost compulsive substitutions are you lose momentum. Earlier in the season, we discussed, do you remember the Phoenix Suns episode that we did where we were talking about, or even Rondo in Atlanta, like how do you space these guys minutes while still giving them at least a 4 to 8 minute stretch, a 6 to 8 minute stretch each time they come out?
Mm-hmm.
The only way you'll do that is off the bench, or do you start them, etc. I think that's the challenge. When you rotate so many people in one lineup, You can, because the Lakers have incredible depth, but it takes away from momentum. No one guy or a bunch of guys at least don't get a consistent run on that court before they're either subbed out or they're subbed in again. And that kind of affects the team balance, especially when LeBron's LeBron. We know that, but when LeBron's not there and somebody else is handling the ball, they're not as elite playmakers. When the four around them keep changing, the styles keep changing, and the plays that you're required to run keep changing. Maybe you don't have a slasher anymore. Maybe you don't have enough shooters, and you're largely going to dink it into the paint and make cuts and run pick and rolls and stuff like that. So I think largely the Lakers had a problem of just too many options, being spoiled for choice. And once Vogel made that adjustment and he kind of pulled it back, they had their best five and then their second best five, and that's pretty much all they did. They ran the game with nine players, I think it was.
Yeah, there's a popular quote in one of the sports things, right? Where someone said, "It what is tougher than winning a championship? It is to repeat that."
Yeah.
Do you think there's a sense of complacency in the Lakers? Because in the last few games they've kind of switched off. They've had this amazing away run on the road. They've been undefeated, and then they lost 2 in a row, and then came close the third time. So I think there's a sense of complacency that you won it, and then you think you're the favorites, and then you don't put in as much effort. Or is there a weak link in this team even? Because there have been rumors about Marc Gasol not being the guy that they expected him to be. Do you think there's a weak link in the squad?
Yeah, Marc Gasol definitely doesn't look like the guy he was, and I think the Lakers knew, and I think most of us knew that this isn't the DPOY Marc Gasol. You're not getting that guy. But as it turns out, I don't think this was the Marc Gasol from 2 seasons ago that won it with Toronto, that could play a limited role. I don't think this is even Marc Gasol from last season. Largely, I think it has to do with fitness and diminishing physical ability, because he still has his brain intact. Clearly, he's still a high IQ, great passer for his size, kind of big man. Where he's going to suffer is in his ability to box out, in his ability to grab those rebounds. Because remember, the Lakers had either JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard on the floor all the time last season, almost all the time. And both of them are pretty strong. Dwight Howard's incredibly strong. Great rim protectors and your chief rebounders, your primary rebounders. They're the ones that give you the luxury to tell Anthony Davis, you don't absolutely have to always clean the glass. We've got others to do it. Kuzma did it even sometimes. And that kind of preserved Anthony Davis. I don't think Gasol's that guy. Like, he had 18 minutes against the Celtics. He got 1 rebound and all of that.
Yeah.
That's just not good at this level. For a starting Lakers big man, that's just not good. So I think there you're definitely onto something. Complacency, it doesn't look like it, honestly. I think a lot of what we're seeing is just either people in a funk, bad run of few games, like KCP suddenly went cold over the last couple of games or so. But largely, I think it was just too many people, too many rotations. There were no set lineups. Like last season, if you remember, the Lakers had a starting five that they were absolutely sure about. And depending on who they were playing in the playoffs, and also to a large extent who they were playing in the regular season, they had their set 3 or 4 guys coming off the bench, and everyone else was just relief minutes. Like Dudley would come on if it's a blowout, stuff like that. But they largely had their 8 or 9 set, and within that, they knew the combinations. Like they knew if LeBron's not on the floor, then we've absolutely got to have this guy on the floor, like say Caruso, who was trusted to be a primary ball handler, or Rondo in the playoffs. And they had all this figured out. I think with all of their pieces, the integration's taken longer than they expected it to, as well as Marc Gasol not being the guy that they kind of brought in. I think it's largely a combination of that, nothing more. Anthony Davis, surprisingly rusty.
Yeah.
I think there's something there. It could be an injury. I don't know what it is. He had a strong game against the Celtics, but he doesn't quite look like himself. I don't think it's an effort problem. There's something there.
Yeah, the aggression is missing, right? You knew Anthony Davis to be that guy who would go in aggressively, get those offensive rebounds and put it back in. But that kind of aggression seems to be missing from what you saw in the bubble.
His free throws off. Like, you don't see Anthony Davis missing free throws a lot, right? There's too many games this season where his free throw shooting's kind of been a bit off. So there's definitely something going on there. And I don't think it's complacency, but let's give it a few more games and see how it pans out. But yeah, that was my take on the Lakers overall. I think it was just a case of too many cooks spoiling the broth. just think about this, right? The Lakers played 9 players against
Yeah.
the Celtics. It was a
Mhm.
close game, sure, but they played 9 players in rotations.
Mhm.
And what that meant was, it wasn't a blowout, so there was no Jared Dudley. Quinn Cook hardly ever gets a look in. But Wes Matthews and Markieff Morris, who
Mhm.
could be starters even in the playoffs in their own right,
Yeah.
didn't get a look in. Like they didn't get a minute. And
Mhm.
that's really the depth of the Lakers. They run so deep that sometimes to restrict it to 9 men and your preferred 1 or 2 rotations,
Mhm.
you got to get players of this caliber to completely miss games. Markieff Morris and Wes Matthews, and maybe on another day it could easily be Horton Tucker missing a game where you need size and spacing and shooting.
Right.
Then there's Markieff Morris who gets a look in. You need more perimeter defense. Wes Matthews gets a look in. I think um, the squad has to get used to the concept that there are going to be players that are not going to be guaranteed a game. It's going to happen that you'll come in once in a while as a role player. Not every role player gets minutes every game. And it's kind of the problem that you have in the NFL too. When you've got too many receivers, when you've got too much talent in the receiving position, the quarterback's in a bit of a sticky spot because he'll have to justify each of them,
Yeah.
and you have to give each of them opportunities to get yards, and because it's linked to incentives and all of that stuff. I think the Lakers are going through a bit of that now. There's just too much depth there, and this is part of the growing pains that comes with that kind of a squad.
Right. And talking about depth, I want to quickly talk about a team that is missing in depth right now due to all the injuries that they have.
Yeah.
The Portland Trailblazers.
Right.
Yes, Dame Lillard got that amazing winner against Chicago Bulls, but they seem to be a different team from what they started off, right? CJ McCollum is out now.
Yeah.
Nurkic is out now. That means Enes Kanter gets a lot of playing time. Gary Trent Jr. gets a lot of playing time. Rodney Hood, who's missed a lot of games, gets a lot of playing time. What do you think should be the expectations for Portland this season, given all of these injuries? It's yet another season for them where they don't have their entire roster together, and it's all up to Dame Lillard to do his thing. Yes, he will go out and do his thing, but is it enough to even take them to the top 4, top 5 position that we had kind of predicted at the start of the season?
No, and again, this is a bit of a recurring theme with a lot of teams. We had this last season, and we're going through this season. How much can you ask of one guy? Because at some point, like burnout is your best case scenario, serious injury is your worst case scenario. When a player consistently plays 40 minutes plus, and it always comes down to Portland. In Portland, it always comes down to this. I remember even in the playoffs, after game 1 where they snatched a win against the Lakers, we were talking about just how many minutes CJ and Dame Lillard had to play out of those. They play like 42, 44 minutes in that game. And I said they're not going to be able to do that over the length of a playoff series against a team where they're bound to get at least 2 wins, at least, right? So I think, unfortunately, it has come down to that again. Now, I like Gary Trent Jr. He's an amazing sharpshooter. Very happy that they found him in the bubble, but he's not CJ. He's not a guy that can borderline run the offense in Lillard's absence. Somebody who can get his own shot, who can rival Lillard in scoring in a lot of games, really. CJ, he's not that. And that's on top of the Nurkic injury. That's on top of the Collins injury. It's a lot. It's really a lot. Like right now, Portland have 3 of their preferred starting 5 out injured. I'm glad they found Enes Kanter. I think he gives them some much needed cushion there. Though I understand they prefer Nurkic, but it just asks too much of Dame Lillard. Like if you look at take Kanter out of the equation on scoring, which a lot of teams will be able to. We've seen that in Boston too. If you do that, then this lineup really only has Dame Lillard that can score. If Gary Trent Jr. doesn't get hot, he's a streaky kind of scorer. If he's not hot, then it's just going to be a bad night, and he's not going to get points on the board. Covington, 3-and-D guy, but he's not that good anymore. Like he'll get you 10, 11 points at best on average, and it's not going to be much higher than that. So I'm afraid there's just too much load on Damian Lillard. If there's anyone in the league that can carry it, it's him. But this was a close game, and that was a miraculous win. That could have easily been an L. All those points and an L. And it's going to be in a lot of games. That's Chicago. What about a slightly tougher team? It's going to result in a lot of L's. So I think at this stage, the way their injuries are racking up, I think Portland are again looking at, can we just somehow squeeze through into the playoffs, and it's probably a first round exit again.
All right. So that was the Portland. It was I mean, I wanted to talk about these two teams because they're having kind of different problems, right? One with too much depth, one
Yeah.
without depth.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that we touched upon them. But a lot of games to look forward to today. The Portland themselves take on Milwaukee Bucks. That's going to be a fun game.
Right.
And then the Lakers take on the Hawks, and then the Warriors take on the Celtics. So that's going to be fun evening tonight for me and morning for you. So
Yeah, the
I'll
Warriors
talk to you.
Celtics is that's the game
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to. It could. I'm just hoping all of the shooters get hot, and then it's going to be one hell of a shooting. It's also going to be one more game of
Mhm.
at what point is at least one person going to dare to say maybe Jaylen Brown is better than Jason Tatum this season, because it's
Oh,
getting
I'm
dangerously
bordering on
close.
the verge of that.
Yeah.
I'm bordering on the verge of saying that.
Yeah,
He's
even against the Lakers, though Tatum had slightly more points. Like he was 1 3-pointer away from being the same as
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown has a much better efficiency stat line, has plus minuses on his side. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah.
I know the skill. I know the number of things that Jason Tatum can do. He's probably slightly still ahead of Jaylen Brown.
Mhm.
But output and production, it's getting dangerously close now. But it's a fun little battle to have, and between it's kind of like when Steph and Clay started shooting lights out.
Right.
It was a fun internal rivalry to have. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's see.
Yeah, it should be a fun game. We'll keep our eyes closed. We'll keep our eyes on that, and then I
Keep our
will
eyes
talk to you
closed?
tomorrow. No, I'll keep our eyes open, and then I'll talk to you about these games tomorrow.
Right. We got one for our blooper reel. All right, man. Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.